Yep.
Brilliant. All right then. Well, with no further ado then, this is the Construction Liaison Forum for Plot K1 and surrounding area. It's the first meeting that we are having of this kind. So we do hope that it is helpful. In terms of an overview of today's session, we're going to do some introductions shortly. We're going to talk a bit about meeting participation, small number of attendees, so that will look a bit different. Simon Bacon, Development Director at British Land, is going to provide a site and master plan summary, tell us a little bit about British Land as well. And then we're going to go over to our contractors. So that will be McAleer and Rush, Goldris, and then we go to a Q&A at the end. And we're going to introduce those individuals as we move along. Just putting Plot K1 and the sort of wider activity in the area that's relevant to our residents here. Just showing this on the map that hopefully you can see in front of you. Plot K1 up at the top there, close to Alfred Salter School, off Roberts Close. Zone L almost opposite, you can see that second down. And then we've got TEDI-London at the bottom there. In terms of who is presenting this evening, I've mentioned Simon Bacon has joined us, Development Director at British Land. He's going to talk a little bit about British Land and about the Canada Water Master Plan. Myself, I am Construction Neighbour Liaison Manager, so it's very much my job to make sure that we're communicating correctly, the right level of information, but also working really closely with British Land's contractors in order to respond swiftly to any queries, concerns, as they may arise during the construction period. We've got Jamie Cassidy here, who's from McAleer and Rush, and also Ross, who is from Goldris. In terms of participation at this meeting, just to flag that by joining you are consenting to be recorded. I'm here hopefully for this session to run smoothly, and I'll chair the Q&A at the end. In terms of how you do various things, we haven't had anyone join by telephone. In terms of questions, using the raise your hand function, you can change your screen view and turn on camera, and I hope that's all reasonably self-explanatory, but I'm not going to focus on that too much here. And in terms of questions, just raising hand, and then we'll move forward on that basis. At this point, Simon, I'm going to hand over to you, if that's okay, just to give a bit of an overview of British Land in Canada Water and the master plan, and then a little bit about British Land. I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Sure. Okay. So we are obviously here. Can everyone hear me first before I make sure that, yeah, good. So we are here to talk about K1, but it's worth giving a bit of an overview of the master plan and a bit about British Land as well. So we've been working on the master plan for quite some time as British Land, and where we've ended up is looking at the redevelopment of Surrey Quays, the shopping centre, the print works, and all of the area and the car parking around that. It's actually really exciting with the fact we're not doing this on our own. We're in partnership with the local council as well, which is really helpful because it means both our view and the council view is taken into account on all of the things that we're bringing forward. There's been a huge amount of input from the community. So it says on the screen, there's over 5,000 individuals have helped shape the plans, and I was personally involved with the later end of some of that community engagement, and it was absolutely outstanding how many people turned out to come and give their views, of which a lot of those views were taken into account when we were putting our planning together. The master plan in itself, so where we've ended up, it's a very flexible planning permission, but it has the ability to deliver a minimum of 2,000, but up to 4,000 homes. We have 35% affordable, of which there's a split between social and intermediate. There will be a brand new high street with new shops, restaurants, entertainment, community spaces across the master plan. And I think really importantly is the open spaces, so 12 acres, so a huge amount of space of open public spaces accessible to everybody. 1,200 new trees sounds like a small point, but actually it was a huge point when we were talking to Southwark about how we anticipate and make sure that we have a lot of green inside the master plan. 16 new streets, leisure centre, health centre, and if you think about it in the end, and I know it's a long way away, but about 20,000 new people will be working in this area. The point is really from this slide and to think about is this is a huge, exciting new development that everyone in their local community will benefit from for over the next 10 to 15 years. I don't think I can change the slide, can I? Okay, thanks. So as far as British Land is concerned, obviously anyone looking at Canada Water will be interested about who's responsible for what's coming forward. British Land, we're a real estate investment trust, FTSE 100 property company. The way that I think about British Land is that we're probably the smallest large company you'll ever know. So we're a very small team that deal with quite a lot of interesting things. It's not the first time that British Land have done any regeneration or development. They've been around for a very, very long time and have lots of successful projects under their belt. The Canada Water involvement, so it's not like British Land bought a bit of Canada Water yesterday. They've been involved with Canada Water for many years. In fact, I think there's been at least 10 years worth of involvement around Canada Water and lots of different history around the local area. And over that period of time, and some of the people on the meeting at the moment have been directly involved with it, we have had a huge presence around the local community and invested in all sorts of community projects and charities as part of our kind of British Land brand and engagement generally of how we do things. But I think the point is, you can rest assured that British Land, yes, we have the experience, but also we are here for the long term. That is our model as a real estate investment trust. If you have a pension, it is quite likely it's invested in British Land. British Land invest in communities and places to develop for the future.
Brilliant, thanks, Simon. So we're going to move over now to Jamie. So I'm just moving to your slides now, Jamie. Sorry, a bit slow here.
Yeah, I couldn't flick it. Sorry.
Perfect, over to you, Jamie.
So hopefully you can all hear me now, okay? Yeah. Plot K1 is actually situated so on the far east of the development, and you can see it on the top of your screen there in the image. Like Simon just noted, there's going to be obviously quite an abundance of residential being built as part of the master plan. On plot K1, 79 affordable homes will be provided, and there'll be a split there between socially rented and intermediate. The time frame for the development currently stands at a summer 2021 start, so only a matter of months away, and then for summer 2023 completion, which we appear to be on track for. So if you just want to jump maybe just to the next slide. So this slide here, for all of you on the call, kind of just gives an overview of how we're going to set the site up and how it might look whenever we are into construction in a matter of months' time. There'll be a number of welfare units that will be placed to the northern boundary of the site, which is essentially Roberts Close, to, for all of you that are familiar with the area. The site is obviously bound by Roberts Close, the London Square development or Claremont House to the left, and then to Russia Dock and the Woodlands to the south. We will have a crane on site, a relatively large tower crane, and then with our welfare sitting to the north. On the next slide, we can just sort of give an overview or high-level view of how vehicles may access the development. So at the minute, or at the moment on our traffic management plan, which has been submitted and approved in principle with the council, is that all vehicles will travel from the south, or travel from the southern side of the master plan, heading north. Vehicles will travel up northbound on Quebec Way, and then enter Roberts Close, which is obviously on the right, adjacent to the Alfred Salter Primary School. What we've got here is a couple of diagrams. The one on the left basically explains how vehicles may reverse up Roberts Close under careful guidance of traffic marshals. and the vehicle or the image on the right then explains how vehicles can drive and turn on Roberts Close using the existing network that's obviously there. Both of these scenarios will be particularly sensitive to Alford Salter School or Alford Salter Primary School, and we actually have gone through this separately with their vice principal. It's something that we'll have to monitor, like all our traffic movements throughout the whole construction period. And if there is any issues or any issues do arise with the movement of our vehicles, then we will look to address that. If we want to move on to the next slide. So yeah, so this next slide basically covers our environmental management. What we as a company do across all our sites, not necessarily just for Canada Water. It's just worth noting. So we as a company, as McLaren Rush, are ISO 14001 credited. What that basically means in layman's terms is that we self-audit ourselves on a monthly basis, on a site-by-site basis, as to how we're performing in terms of the overall environmental impact of our site. That includes everything from the energy that which we use on site, to how our operatives behave, and to how we interact with the local community and neighbours. It's worth noting, without reading it word for word here off the screens, there are a few things that are worth noting. We as a company are very aware of our responsibility to source materials, and our responsibility to source materials carefully, making sure that they're coming from renewable sources, and that we are always targeting now 95% of construction waste that goes back to a recycling plant across all our developments. And then a few things there just to note there with regards to the actual specifics of plot K1 and the development. The development itself will have a home quality mark, which is sort of similar to BREEAM for residential. Basically means that not only are we careful about how we use water and electricity on site, but the development will also be doing the same in the long term. As part of our site setup and in the early days, once we get mobilized and get ready to go to site, we will be submitting and agreeing a section 61 with the Southwark Council. Essentially, that means that plan will detail how we will best mitigate our site activities so that we lessen our impact on the local area. It will describe how we maintain our vehicles, how we will work within the certain noise parameters that are explained within the council guidelines. We'll also be registered with CCS, which is the Considered Contractor Scheme. What happens within the scheme is basically that we will get externally audited by an industry board. They will come out, they will assess our national industry board. They will come out, assess our site, assess that we are doing all the best practices and that we're following them, that we have management systems in place, and they will give us a score on a number of occasions throughout the construction programme to let us know how we are doing compared to other construction sites in the whole of the UK. With regards to environmental management and maybe our engagement with the community, it's just worth noting that we do have an open door policy. If there's ever an issue with anything that we are doing, or someone has a dislike towards it, or someone notices something that maybe we haven't seen, there's no issue at any time of contacting either myself or the site management team that will be on the site. If something does occur, we're always contactable and happy to take the calls and see what we can do to alleviate any issues. And just maybe, Sarah, if we could just jump on to maybe the next slide there. So this diagram basically shows our site setup and how we will record, which is probably the two most nuisance factors that come out of any construction site, are dust and noise. So the most sensitive receptors for the site are obviously the two primary schools, the Catholic school to the right, Alfred Salter to the north, and then the residential development, Claremont House, to the left. We've got real-time monitoring set up on site. Essentially, what real-time monitoring means in layman's terms is that we get a notification at any point in time where we either get close to the threshold or we go over the threshold of what is permitted to be permissible construction noise. It's a really useful system. It advises us that maybe the method that we have in place isn't quite working the way we thought it was. It advises us then to change our sequence of works to see if there's something else that we can do. It's a proactive system, and it's great for all of us. It hopefully limits any annoyances that anyone may have in the area. And then depending on, there's another 4 locations around the perimeter where we will create, or we will have a scheduled monitoring regime depending on the works taking place at that time. We will then do that by handheld. That depends on some sequences of works will create a limited amount of noise and dust, and others we know will have a higher risk of. So we will adjust the schedule accordingly. Maybe we can jump on just to the next one there, Sarah. So just with regards to the mitigation, there's a few things there that I've maybe touched on before, but what we'll do with regards to mitigation is we will always be assessing our construction methods to see if there's anything that we can do better. Is there room for improvement in anything that we are planning ahead? Even if we start something and we plan it maybe to the best of our knowledge, but an anomaly crops up, we'll be proactive in trying to resolve any issues that may occur, and we'll also hopefully be proactive in responding to any concerns of our neighbours. What we do with regards to mitigation is probably the biggest thing on site that I think is going to be quite useful to the surrounding neighbours is that our facade around the outer perimeter is all going to be precast. So basically that means it's going to be manufactured off-site, brought to site, and then installed with a crane. That means there's going to be less men working on the outer perimeter, or men or women on the outer perimeter, than what you maybe would see otherwise using more traditional construction techniques. We hope, and we plan for this in the hope that it would be a benefit to the local area and hopefully reduce our impact. Then with regards to, there's a reasonable amount of groundworks to do on the site that has the risk of giving rise to dust. But what we will do, we'll always be doing things like dampening down. Dampening down basically means that we spray and mist water over the areas in which we are working to stop the risk of any dust becoming airborne. Any of the vehicles leaving our site in terms of skips and lorries that are requiring, or that are carrying, the muck away is what we term it, will be covered at all times. So once it's not a case where we're okay in sight, and then once it gets out our gate, then it's not an issue. That's far from the case. All our deliveries and vehicles entering and leaving the site will be FORS approved. FORS is also linked with clocks. There's 2 organisations that are doing great work within the UK and specifically in the London area in terms of reducing the impact that vehicles have on the streets of London. So hopefully that will all go to plan. And then maybe move on to that's the next slide, sir, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. We're now going to hand over to Ross. We have had another resident join us, so welcome. Over to you, Ross. Sorry, Ross, you should be there now. Thanks.
Hi there. Sorry for the delay. So Galvris are working on Zone L, so just south of Quebec Way, completing enabling works. We've completed demolition of the old automated real steel store, so the large shed that used to be part of the Printworks buildings, and we are now carrying on with some further demolition work over the next 2 months. We will then progress with construction of a new large basement for UKPN to fit out as a major substation. The substation will feed both the British Land development, local residences and future demand within the Southwark area. Approximately a third of the substation goes directly into the British Land development at the moment. The substation will be about 10 metres deep and will be brought up to ground level with some air intake and extract. So there's limited visual impact going forward. And then once we've completed our works, there will be 3 residential blocks built around the substation. Our current programme shows us starting piling next month, and then bulk excavation works will commence in December. If we go on to the next slide, please. So similar to Jamie, we have been working with the council to agree Section 61 agreements on noise and vibration, and traffic movement has been discussed and agreed, which heads in a similar direction along Quebec Way and then out towards the south onto the main roads, avoiding impacting the Alfred Salter School and trying to minimise effect on the local minor roads. As I said, this has been agreed with Southwark. And then if we go on to the next slide. So Jamie's touched on a lot of the good stuff that modern construction firms are doing. So we have similar ISO accreditation, auditing and regular inspection from Considerate Constructor Scheme. We're currently completing work over in the Tesco car park and have just gone through an audit with some really good results. On this site, we are putting up hoarding as safety segregation and also to help with noise and dust control. The perimeter hoarding is 3 metres high, and then within site there are a number of safety screens and partitions between us and the Printworks business. Just on the south of the site there is where we will have our site welfare and offices. So our construction staff will come along Quebec Way, enter through that northern entrance to the Printworks along with all of our construction traffic, and we are working with all of our construction teams to ensure that we minimise the impact on Quebec Way and aren't parking out there and keep ourselves out of the way. As I said, we've got a number of noise and vibration monitors around the site. These have been discussed and agreed with the Southwark Environmental Health team. We have trigger points, so the system is actively monitoring the site and our site staff get notified at an amber level. So this is before we reach the critical level with Southwark. We investigate what's going on, put measures in place, corrective actions, and then should we reach a red trigger level, we stop all works, review what's gone wrong, and put measures in place to make sure that we're working within the boundaries that are set. Monday to Friday we're working 8 till 6, and then on Saturday we've got standard hours of 8 till 2 with no noisy works before 9 AM.
Brilliant, thanks Ross. I'm just going to move on to Teddy now. I'll let you cover the first part, then I might hop in.
So the first slide there was a CGI or a computer model of what TEDI should look like, and the picture there is how it looks. So I think we've done a pretty good job on matching the image to the design. TEDI is a global design higher education provider. We're providing them with a temporary campus in this building, and then within the master plan is a permanent site for them to be situated. The building there we have handed over now for TEDI to start their internal fit out. We do still have some external work and cladding ongoing until the end of August, and TEDI are opening their doors to students from September of this year. So there is a little bit of work left from us, but we're pretty much there with their work, and then it's handed over to TEDI for their education programme going forward.
Brilliant, thanks Ross. I would just add there as well that the local community will hear more from TEDI as they occupy the building, get to know the local community, and so on and so forth. So they'll be there and taking their first intake from September. That's really good, Ross. Thank you for all of that. I just wanted to touch briefly on jobs and training, really with a focus on the construction period for relevance in this session. You've probably seen British Land speaking in various communications around local employment and generating sustainable opportunities for local people. And we very much see that as starting in the construction period. British Land haven't been on site with contractors for very long, but we're already really pleased with how all of that is going. In the broader context over the construction period, British Land expects that 1,000 construction jobs will be generated over the course of circa 10 years. That includes apprenticeships as well, so that's quite a large figure, but it's reflective of British Land's commitment to local employment, but also the really good links that they've developed in the area over the course of time. In terms of who is there at the moment, and we are going to talk about this more broadly as we move forward, but we've got 3 Southwark residents who are in apprenticeships. We've got 7 local people on site at the moment. We've got various ways of measuring the effectiveness of that. And one of those is a time commitment. So 5 of those Southwark residents have already been employed for a period of more than 26 weeks. They're all getting on really well. We're going to start to do some interview pieces with them as well. There's some really nice stories there. We've also advertised in sort of various ways how those who are interested in either now or future job opportunities, how they can let us know. These details are all going to be shared afterwards, but it's basically contacting us via our project email address and just letting us know that you're interested in hearing more about construction employment opportunities. So I'm going to leave that there for now, but there's much more on the website on that if you are interested. We are now going to go to a Q&A, which I think is going to look slightly different than I'd anticipated, because We don't have lots of attendees this evening. We will be sharing online this presentation, but not the Q&A section, in order to be compliant with the sort of various privacy legislation. Before we go to that, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about how we do this. This is the first online construction forum that we have had, so we didn't know whether we'd sort of receive one attendee or, you know, hundreds. But I think that there are quite a few quite a small number, so we can handle questions just now. Before we go to that, I would just like to reiterate the way in which we communicate more broadly. So I think those who have joined the call received our first construction newsletter that was issued in June. We'd be grateful for any feedback on that. What we've tried to do is put all of the project construction updates into one place. I think there'll be people on the call who previously have received various newsletters from different contractors. And as the contractors get to site, we want to make that much more straightforward. So looking at doing that every 2 months in printed form, it's on the website as well. Really just trying to get a good balance of information there. So not too much information so you read it and sort of think that's too much, but enough so you know what's happening over the coming months. Likewise, these forums, this is the first session that we are holding this evening. We'll go away, and as the COVID restrictions hopefully ease as well, looking at how people want to engage with us, whether that's in person or online or a combination of the two. This looks very different, I suppose, to what we may have done in the past in a local hall or whatever that might have been. Our e-newsletter, details on the bottom there in terms of how you can opt in to receive our project e-news if you don't already. Web updates, we keep the web site up to date all of the time, including with important changes, anything that impacts working hours. That might be a crane coming to site early in the morning and what that might mean on the local network. So constantly keeping that up to date with the latest information. And social media as well for those who use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and so on. Likewise using those platforms as well. The contractors mentioned about our sort of open door policy, and we do think that moving forward, the contractors will likely have a meet and greet style approach. We just haven't been able to do that yet for the sort of obvious reasons. If there's ever a need to contact us for any reason, question, concern, and so on and so forth, we've got our free phone number, our email address, which myself and the team look after, and we've got time commitments in which we respond to you, but we're always looking to respond as quickly as we can. And if I need to, I'll have conversations with Jamie or Ross or whoever the relevant contractor may be. That's our final slide for this evening.